Every morning, the city woke up to the gentle hum of life stirring. In the early hours, streets lined with dew shimmered under the first rays of sunlight, and the world felt both vast and intimate. Amid the routine of daily commutes and hurried footsteps, there was a simple blue bus that wound its way through narrow lanes, picking up passengers who depended on its timing with almost sacred faith. Behind the wheel sat Mr. Min, a man in his late 50s whose hair was peppered with gray and whose eyes radiated a quiet wisdom. For over 2 decades, he'd steered that bus along the same route, greeting familiar faces with a smile that seemed to say, "You matter." He knew the city's rhythms, unease, the way morning light filtered through rows of tamarind trees, the laughter of children on their way to school, the tired sighs of workers returning home. But above all, he understood patience, the art of moving at life's pace, not just his own. It was on a crisp autumn morning that he first noticed the little boy standing alone near a battered gate. The child clutched his backpack to his chest, eyes darting nervously down the street. Each day, Mr. Min would tap the brakes, slow to a crawl, and glance over, hoping the boy would run forward. But each day, he arrived just a breath too late, watching the bus pull away with a quiet disappointment etched on his face. The other passengers barely noticed, lost in their own thoughts, but Mr. Min saw. He saw the longing, the frustration, and the silent plea. "Just a moment longer, please." Days turned into weeks, and still the pattern repeated. Rain or shine, the little boy missed the bus by mere seconds. Mr. Min wondered about the boy's story. Did he struggle to wake up in the mornings? Was there something at home that delayed him? A younger sibling? A tired parent? A missing shoe? The questions lingered, gnawing at Mr. Min's heart. He remembered his own childhood, the mornings his mother hurried him out the door, the embarrassment of arriving late, the loneliness of being left behind. One morning, as the city stirred and sunlight danced on wet pavement, Mr. Min made a decision. He arrived at the stop a minute early and waited. The seconds stretched out, long and silent. Passengers shifted in their seats, glancing at their watches, impatience flickering in their eyes. Still, Mr. Min waited. And then, breathless and wide-eyed, the little boy came rushing down the path, his shoes untied, his backpack bouncing behind him. He stopped, gasping at the bus steps. Mr. Min smiled and nodded, and the boy climbed aboard, relief flooding his face. In that moment, something shifted. Not just for the boy, but for everyone watching. The bus was more than a vehicle. It became a vessel of kindness, a place where someone's needs mattered. From that day forward, Mr. Min waited. Every morning, he gave those extra moments, sometimes 2, sometimes 5. The boy's confidence grew. He started arriving a little earlier, waving shyly at Mr. Min as he took his seat. The other passengers, once restless, began to notice the change. Some smiled knowingly, others offered the boy a seat or a word of encouragement. Patience, Mr. Min realized, was more than the absence of hurry. It was an act of presence, a gift freely given to another person. In a world obsessed with efficiency, where every second is measured and every delay condemned, he chose to pause. In doing so, he showed that time spent waiting is never wasted when it's spent on another human being. The boy's story slowly unfolded. His name was Anne, and he lived with his grandmother in a small house at the edge of the neighborhood. His parents worked in another city, sending money home when they could. Each morning, his grandmother helped him get ready, but her health was frail, her movements slow. Sometimes she couldn't find his socks. Sometimes they shared a simple breakfast that took a little longer to prepare, and never complained. He just tried to move faster, to be braver, to not let the bus slip away. But with Mr. Min waiting, Anne no longer felt the sting of being late. He learned that sometimes people notice your struggles, even when you say nothing. He learned that kindness can be as simple as waiting, as profound as a smile at the right moment. Word of Mr. Min's patience spread quietly through the neighborhood. Other parents began to see his bus as a lifeline, not just because it arrived on time, but because it arrived with heart. Children who once dreaded the morning rush felt a little lighter, knowing someone would wait for them if they stumbled. The older passengers, who had seen decades of change and progress, softened in their judgments. They remembered their own childhoods, the times someone had waited for them, or the times they'd wished someone had. Patience, and learned, isn't passive. It's a gentle strength, the willingness to hold space for someone else's journey. It's the courage to be present, even when the world urges you to move on. Over time, Anne began to offer that same patience to others. When his grandmother struggled with her steps, he waited. When classmates fumbled with their books or words, he listened. The lesson rippled outward, touching lives in ways both seen and unseen. Mr. Min's act of waiting became a quiet revolution, a reminder that our smallest choices can have the greatest impact. In a city where everyone was in a hurry, he taught a generation the power of slowing down, of noticing, of caring. He showed that presence is a gift, one we can all give, no matter how busy our lives. Years later, long after Anne had outgrown the little blue bus, he still remembered those mornings. He carried the lesson with him into adulthood, into friendships and family, into moments of frustration and moments of grace. Whenever life pressed him to move faster, to hurry past someone else's struggle, he remembered Mr. Min, the bus driver who waited. He remembered that sometimes the greatest difference we make is not in grand gestures, but in the simple act of being there, of holding the door open, of letting someone catch their breath. In every city, on every street, there are people waiting, not just for buses, but for kindness, for understanding, for a moment of patience. We may never know whose life we touch with a simple act of presence, but we can be sure that, like the ripples on a quiet pond, those moments travel farther than we ever imagine. And so, the lesson endures. Be patient, be present, and when you can, be the one who waits. In doing so, you just might change a life forever.